Donald Trump and his MAGA allies in the House are trying to sabotage a bipartisan immigration compromise they themselves insisted on so that Trump can use the border as a campaign issue against Joe Biden. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Whenever election season rolls around, you can count on Republicans and right-wing media to start fear-mongering about immigration. In 2018, for example, as the midterms neared, Trump spent virtually every day obsessing over so-called caravans of migrants. They were headed toward the border, and he made increasingly unhinged claims about the people supposedly in those caravans.
At this very moment, large, well-organized caravans of migrants are marching toward our southern border. Some people call it an invasion. It's like an invasion.
You're going to find MS-13, you're going to find Middle Eastern, you're going to find everything. And guess what? We're not allowing them in our country. These are some bad people coming through there. These aren't babies. These aren't little angels coming into our country.
It's actually mostly young men and a lot of rough people, When you look at that caravan and you look largely, very, big percentage of men, young, strong.
Why is it when Trump talks about migrants, he suddenly sounds like Jiminy Glick? They're tough men, they're rough and they're tumble, and they're young and strong like the swashbucklers of yore. Why do you think they're so tough? Seriously, though, what is Trump's obsession with strong young men? Did Trump mix up his daily briefing with one of those firefighter calendars? I've seen the pictures. These migrants, they're big, strong men standing in front of fire trucks. They're holding axes and hoses. It's no joke. Their shirts off, torsos glistening, pectoral muscles popping off the page. And that's just January. And of course, whenever Trump decides to exploit an issue for political gain, right-wing media obediently follows his cue, which is exactly what they did in 2018.
This is an invasion. This is an act of attacking the United States sovereignty.
This is a threatened invading force that may well bash its way through our fence the way they did the Guatemalan fence.
These caravans are due to arrive on Election Day.
What about diseases? I mean, there's a reason why you can't bring a kid to school unless he's inoculated.
They're coming in with diseases such as smallpox and leprosy and TB that are going to affect our people in the United States.
Smallpox and leprosy. So they're big, strong men who are going to bash their way through the fence, but they're also diseased time travelers from medieval Europe. They're big, strong men, but some of them are warlocks, witches, and worst of all, White Walkers. Also, if I was on the lookout for a typhoid Mary who might be spreading disease throughout the country, I'd look no further than this man. I mean, forget smallpox. I'm pretty sure he has big pox. He looks like something you pull off your leg with tweezers. You should bring him to a doctor in a small Ziploc bag to get tested. Of course, it turns out none of that was sincere. It was all cynical BS because the minute the midterms were over, Republicans and Fox News dropped the issue entirely.
While Fox News spent more than 33 hours discussing the caravan through Election Day, the network didn't focus on it at all the day after the midterms, and it has spent less than 5 minutes on the subject the day after that. 4 White House officials and outside advisors all tell the Associated Press that inside the West Wing, the belief is that the caravan was a useful midterm messaging tool.
They're not even subtle about it. They just immediately drop it, like a guy trying to pick up a girl at a bar by pretending to be British. Oh, yes, hello there. I'm here with my mates, and I was wondering if I could buy you a pint. Oh, you have a boyfriend? Well, then, So it's worth keeping all of that in mind as Republicans once again fan the flames of immigration panic. Now, there's no denying that the immigration system needs reform. I'm just not sure I trust these people to do it, since most of them don't even seem to know the first thing about immigration law. Take South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who said on Fox last week that Texas should be allowed to block federal agents from the southern border in defiance of a Supreme Court ruling that stated the obvious, which is that the federal government, not states, has authority over the border. And Noem's reasoning was unsurprisingly very dumb.
I'm proud of the fact that this state and 25 other governors are standing and declaring and protecting our state sovereignty. Texas and those 13 original colonies would have never signed the treaty that formed the first Constitution of the United States if they didn't think that their right to protect themselves and defend their own people was protected.
Yes, of course, Texas and the 13 original colonies. We all remember that famous painting of Washington crossing the Rio Grande in a cowboy hat. You think Texas was one of the 13 original colonies? Where did you go to school? Florida? A fundamental truth about immigration is that it is incredibly complex and difficult to solve. It's understandable that migrants want to come here. They're desperately fleeing poverty and violence and exercising their legal right to seek asylum, a right enshrined in both U.S. and international law. The difficulty is in processing all of those asylum requests in a way that's fair, compassionate, and humane. And that requires more resources and more people, like immigration judges, for example, to evaluate the backlog of asylum claims as quickly as possible. President Biden has all but begged Congress to send him a bill to give him those resources and fix the problem.
You've done everything you can do with executive authority. Or is there more you could do? Absent
I've done all I can do. Give me the power. I've asked for the very day I got in office. Give me the border patrol. Give me the people, the judges. Give me the people who can stop this and make it work right.
Whatever you think about Biden, it's refreshing to have a president who asks Congress to give him power rather than insist he already has it. Can you imagine Trump saying the words, "I've done all I can do"? I mean, maybe if he suffered a massive head injury and woke up from a coma with a completely different personality. Sadly, I am not omnipotent. The president is but one officer in our elegantly constructed system of constitutional government. The framers delineated a set of enumerated powers in Article 2, and as a faithful steward of our... Ooh, wait a second, where am I? Witch hunt, Crooked Joe, not nice. I don't know. Brick hit me today when I was like, that'll work. The good news is at least there's not a callback. Now, the only reason we're in this position in the first place is that Republicans refused to pass aid for Ukraine unless it was tied to new funding and policy changes for the border. They used it as a bargaining chip, and Democrats acquiesced. They said, fine, we'll combine them. Let's work this out together, and they did. And now, in a rare show of bipartisanship, the bill they came up with has the support of both Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. It would be the most substantial immigration reform in decades. Ukraine gets funding, the border gets funding, everybody wins. But the problem is, this guy only likes winning if everybody else loses. So now, of course, he's trying to sabotage the deal.
Today, Donald Trump turning up the pressure on Republicans to reject the border security bill their own party has demanded for months.
Former President Donald Trump has been openly pressuring Republicans to kill the deal, to deny President Joe Biden a legislative win, and so Trump can keep the issue alive throughout the presidential campaign.
As the leader of our party, there is zero chance I will support this horrible open borders betrayal of America. It's not going to happen. I noticed that, and I'll fight it all the way. I noticed a lot of the senators are trying to say respectfully they're blaming it on me. I said, that's okay. Please blame it on me. Please.
You got it, bro. I'm sorry, but aren't you the guy who told us it was a problem in the first place? So you want credit for talking about the problem and blame for blocking the solution. This is like a doctor saying, well, looks like your leg is broken. Now, I could put it in a cast, but then your leg would heal and you wouldn't need me anymore. Where would I get my golf money? So Trump is openly trying to sabotage legislation with the explicit goal of making the problem worse so he can campaign on it. And Trump's loyal servants in the House, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, are following his lead, which has infuriated the Republican senators who worked on the bill. Here's Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy responding to Trump.
The former president has come out and called this deal a betrayal. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Does he have access to the bill?
Doesn't seem that way.
It hasn't been released. How does he know it's a betrayal if he hasn't read it? But people have to show courage. If you're afraid, you got to read the bill. I mean, don't be ignorant. Read the bill.
You want Trump to not be ignorant by reading a bill. You're going to need another brick. I do think it'll go better this time. I don't need to read the bill because I know a bad deal when Melania. Oh, Melania, could you steep some chamomile? I think I'm going to be up late reading. Do you honestly expect Donald Trump to read a bill? The man can't even read a teleprompter. He can't even be bothered to proofread his own name before he tweets it. That's a real thing. He misspelled his own name to Tump. He must have the only phone in the world with auto incorrect. That looks like a sound effect from a 1940s radio play. He walked down the hallway, clip, clop, clip, clop. Then he opened the door, creak, and then all of a sudden there was a crash, ta-tump. But Cassidy was not the only GOP senator frustrated by Trump's bad faith gambit. Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, who spearheaded the compromise, gave the whole game away when he expressed his frustration with Republicans suddenly changing their tune on Fox News.
It is interesting. Republicans 4 months ago would not give funding for Ukraine, for Israel, and for our southern border because we demanded changes in policy. So we actually locked arms together and said, we're not going to give you money for this. We want a change in law. And now it's interesting, a few months later, when we're finally getting to the end, they're like, oh, just kidding. I actually don't want a change in law because it's a presidential election year.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I love when you can see a Republican become self-aware in real time. It's like if you asked ChatGPT a question and it replied, wait, am I a robot? That's the whole game right there, and that was always the game. MAGA Republicans pretended in bad faith that they wanted a border compromise, but in reality, they never wanted that. They don't actually want the problem solved. They want it to remain a problem so they can run on it just like they did in 2018. It's not a serious governing party, and this makes it plain as day. Republicans are obeying Trump because they're weak. They could stand up to him, but to do that, they'd have to be
strong.
Why do you think they're so strong? This has been a closer look. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching A Closer Look. And as a reminder, my brother Josh and I have started a new podcast called Family Trips with the Myers Brothers. We hope you listen. We hope you like it. And see you soon.